ready for a rant. Hello Internet, my name is Lave and I watched the remake which nobody thought was necessary, and that is Flatliners, which is directed by Danish director Niels Oplev, who also directed the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Swedish version. That gave me some glimmer of hope that this actually might be good. So let's talk about the premise, which centres on 5 medical students who deliberately kill themselves in controlled conditions to try and answer the age-old question, what happens to us when we die? Indeed, each of them have a profound experience when they flatline before they are revived, which changes their outlook on life forever, but then they realise that they may have brought something else back with them. So let's get this out of the way. This is a straight up remake. Apart from a few minor tweaks and some cosmetic changes, it hits exactly the same beats as the original did. It has the same message. Ultimately, the characters bring back their sins and they've got to atone for them. Right away, I think that was the film's first mistake, the fact that they decided to make a remake and not do a sequel. I genuinely believe they could have made an interesting sequel which maybe picked up with some of the characters from the first one and tied it into the new characters. Perhaps the old characters somehow motivated the new ones, or perhaps the new ones found some of the footage from the first one. There was a lot of potential there, and what's really frustrating is that they could have done it because Kiefer Sutherland is in this one. He's playing a completely different character. In fact, they just slap on a wig, give him a walking stick, and he plays this really caricatured character. It's pretty embarrassing. In fact, I wouldn't mind betting that they filmed all of his scenes within one day and he just picked up his check at the end of it and was like, thank you very much. Speaking of the new characters, as I say, they're just variations of the characters we've already seen. Ellen Page is predominantly playing the role that Kiefer Sutherland played in the first one. Something from her past has traumatized her, which motivates her to do what she's doing, and she coerces her friends to help her do it. Granted, there are some minor changes. For example, when they come back from the dead, they seem to be more intelligent and just more focused, which is what motivates the others to then do it as well. The first one was so good because it was just the fact that they had this profound experience which motivated the other ones to do it. This one, I just didn't buy the fact that they're better now. Yeah, starving your brain of oxygen really does help you think better. Yeah, sure. And they do take the character in a different direction, which does take the focus off Ellen Page's character, who is arguably the most likable character, and then it focuses on Nina Dobrev's character, who is unlikable and was just a side character at first, and I was just like, why have they done that? There's so many things that baffle me about this film, one of them being the actors that they've got. I can't believe that they got some of these actors who have been so good in other films. For example, Kiersey Clemons, who was so good in 2015's Dope. She's such a cool character in that. In this one, she's playing a really wimpy character who's smothered by her mother and she's struggling with her exams and at medical school. But then it just takes a completely different direction because then it's revealed that she actually bullied people when she was younger. It's so inconsistent. Another example of the inconsistency can be found in Diego Luna's character, who, let's not forget, has just done Star Wars Rogue One, and now he's taking a step back to do this. His character is all on his high horse at first, and he actually says to one of the other characters, who's a doctor, who says, maybe you shouldn't be a doctor because you've made some questionable decisions in the past, despite the fact that he's actually helping kill his colleagues. It's so inconsistent. Who else am I forgetting? Oh yeah, James Norton, who's basically playing the same character as William Baldwin or Alec Baldwin, one of the Baldwin brothers in the first one. He's a sex pest, and to be honest, I just hope they didn't revive him when they flatlined him, but they do. To be honest, I'm not going to give the actors a hard time. I'm just surprised that they chose to do this. But the writers, on the other hand, wow. As I say, I genuinely think there is an opportunity to do a decent sequel, but I guess that was too hard. They had to put too much thought into that, so they just thought, we will just tell the same story again and try and make it relevant by including things like sexting or driving while texting. Yeah, all of the kids are going to relate to that, surely. I can't help but think of some of the thought processes and the conversations that they must have had whilst coming up with this. They must have said at some point, well, we can't just say the same thing again, so let's just fill it with some medical mumbo jumbo and make it seem smarter than it actually is. And on that note, I don't know if it was a subconscious thing, but one of the characters actually says in this at one point, isn't this medical terminology just really hard to learn? It's like, Is that the writers saying that? Are they just giving us the big middle finger? What? Not only that, in between all of the medical bollocks that they talk about, they get the characters to say the stupidest lines. It actually made me laugh. It's so bad. One character says at one point, "You think this is making you smarter? It's just making you dead." That's my bad Diego Luna impression. But then my favourite is one of the very last lines where someone says in like a really ghosty voice, "You have to learn to forgive yourself." Thanks, writers. Thanks, movie, for that really patronising line which I couldn't possibly have figured out by myself. What the... So you might be thinking there might be some joy to be had in the updated visual effects. Well, actually, I found them really bland, and if anything, I thought they ripped it off of other movies. For example, the bit when they go into their flatline state just made me think of Tron Legacy.
The grid. A digital frontier. I tried to picture clusters of information as they moved through the computer. And then, one day, I got in.
After that, it goes into generic horror territory with your basic jump scares. And again, I think they've ripped off scenes from Blair Witch Project and even scenes from The Ring with the girl who's standing there all in wet hair, just standing there looking all menacing. Again, it's so unimaginative and boring. It's rubbish. I will say this though about the film, they have achieved one thing at least. They've somehow made it cheesier than the original. Let me reiterate that. Flatliners 2017 is somehow cheesier than Joel Batman and Robin Shoemaker's 1990s version. So that's my thoughts on Flatliners, and pause the video if you want to. At its core, there is a really cool concept there, but you could have said that when the 1990s version came out. And I'm not by any means saying that that film was a masterpiece. I do have really fond memories of watching that back in the day on VHS. It had a really cool up-and-coming young cast and Oliver Platt. It was really edgy and cool, and yes, it does have its problems which could have been addressed in this one, but instead they just decided to do a very, very lazy, unimaginative retread of it. But that's coming from someone who has seen the original. Anyone who hasn't seen it might think that this is quite cool, but even then, the effects, you've seen it all before, the dialogue is terrible, it's just terrible. Very, very lazy filmmaking. Anyway, thanks very much for watching my review of Flatliners. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give this video a like, and don't forget to share the Lave. God, I really felt myself getting agitated with that one. Subscribe